47 keys, 47 lies, 47 lives I never imagined existed. My name is Margaret Harrison. I'm 70 years old today, but this story I'm about to tell happened when I was 38 back in 1965. Feels like it was yesterday, you know? There are things you never forget, no matter how hard you try. And believe me, I tried. For many years, I tried to erase from my memory that September that changed my entire life. Before I continue, I want to ask something from those of you listening now. If you're enjoying this story, leave your like here on the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing that people from all over are listening to me. Makes me feel less alone with these memories, you know? Well, let's get to it. I need to go back in time so you can understand properly. In 1965, I lived in a small town in rural Kentucky. I won't say the name of the town because there are still people alive who knew my husband, and I don't want to cause more pain to anyone. But it was one of those towns where everyone knows everyone, where news spreads faster than wildfire, where the women gather at the town square after Sunday service to gossip about other people's lives. I was married to Joseph for 23 years. That's right, 23 years. We had married in 1942, me at barely 15 years old, and him at 25. Back then, that's how it was, dear. Girls married young and married who their parents chose. My father had chosen Joseph because he had a steady job. He was a custodian at the city hall. The pay was low, but it was guaranteed money every month. In those times of so much difficulty, that was already a lot. Joseph was a man, how can I explain? He was ordinary. He wasn't handsome, but he wasn't ugly either. He wasn't affectionate, but he wasn't mean either. He didn't talk much, but he didn't fight either. He was one of those men you barely notices at home. He'd wake up before dawn, have the coffee I left ready, take his old bicycle and go to work at City Hall. He'd come back in the late afternoon, have dinner, listen to his battery-powered radio, and go to sleep. Every single day, the same thing. We didn't have children. That was my deepest pain, understand? I wanted so badly to have a child, to continue the family line, to have someone to care for, to give love to, but it never came. We tried for years, but my belly never grew. Joseph never blamed me for it, never threw it in my face, and I was grateful for that. There are husbands who abandon their wives because of not having children. He stayed. At least that's what I thought he had done. Stayed with me. Our life was simple. We lived in a little 3-room house, bedroom, living room, and kitchen. The bathroom was outside, in the backyard. The house had no luxury at all, but it was clean, organized. I took pride in my house. I'd spend the day taking care of it, washing clothes in the wash tub, cooking on the wood stove, sewing clothes for others to earn some extra money. Joseph's salary barely covered the basics, so I always needed to make ends meet to supplement. He traveled a lot, Joseph did. At least that's what he said. Every month, 3 or 4 times, he'd grab his cardboard suitcase, that worn-out suitcase full of patches, and say he needed to go handle City Hall business in other towns. Sometimes he'd be gone 2, 3 days. I never questioned it. Women didn't question their husbands back then, dear. We accepted, lowered our heads, and got on with life. Besides the monthly trips, every Wednesday night he'd go out, always at the same time, 7 p.m. sharp. He said he was going to the Public Employees Union meeting. He'd come back late, around 10:30. I was already asleep most times. This went on for years, years and years. Every Wednesday the same story. Now comes the part that changed everything. It was a Tuesday, September 28th, 1965. I remember the date because it was 2 days before my parents' 30th wedding anniversary, and I was sewing a tablecloth as a gift for my mother. Joseph had returned from a trip the previous Sunday. He had gone to Cincinnati, or at least that's what he had said. That Tuesday, after lunch, I went to wash his clothes in the wash tub, separated the pieces, put them to soak with lye soap. When I grabbed his brown jacket, that jacket he wore on his more formal trips, I felt the inside pocket was heavy. I thought it was his wallet, but it wasn't. It was a different bulk, more voluminous. I stuck my hand in the pocket to take it out before soaking the jacket, and that's when it happened. The pocket lining was old, worn, and when I pulled, the fabric tore. And from the tier, my God in heaven, from the tier keys started falling. 1, 2, 5, 10 keys falling on the concrete floor of the backyard, making that sound of metal hitting metal. I stood there paralyzed, looking at it. I kept pulling the lining, and more keys came, more and more keys. When it finally stopped, when no more fell, I bent down and started picking them up from the floor. My hands were shaking. I can't explain why, but something in my chest already knew this wasn't normal, that something was very wrong there. I took all the keys inside the house, put them on the kitchen table, and started counting, one by one slowly, organizing them in little rows. When I finished counting, I counted again because I couldn't believe it. I counted a third time. 47 keys. 47 different keys, different sizes, different shapes. Some were normal door keys, those old iron ones. Others were smaller, looked like padlock keys. There were even some tiny ones that looked like drawer or briefcase keys. And the strangest part, each one had a number engraved on it. It wasn't a factory number, no. It was engraving done afterward with some sharp-pointed tool. Number 1, number 2, number 3, up to number 47. Someone had numbered these keys on purpose, had organized them, had made a system. I sat in the kitchen chair with those 47 keys spread out in front of me and started to sweat cold. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my head. I took each key and tried to figure out what they opened. I went to every door in our house, the front one, the bedroom one, the pantry, the gate padlock. None of the keys fit anything in our house. None. I tested the padlock on the trunk where I kept the bed linens. Didn't fit. I tested the drawer of Joseph's dresser. Didn't fit. I tested everything that had a lock in that house, and none, absolutely none of those 47 keys opened anything that was ours. So whose keys were these? What did they open? Why was my husband carrying 47 keys hidden in the lining of his jacket? I looked at the wall clock in the kitchen. It was 3 p.m. Joseph wouldn't be back from work until 6. I had 3 hours to decide what to do. Should I confront him? Should I ask directly? But what if he got angry? What if he thought I was snooping, being one of those distrustful women who don't trust their husbands? Back then, dear, we were afraid to question men. We were afraid of seeming crazy, jealous, hysterical. How many women had I seen be called crazy by their own husbands, just because they suspected something? How many had been sent to the doctor to get tranquilizers because they were having a fit? I decided I wouldn't say anything, at least not at that moment. I'd observe, I'd investigate on my own. If I had concrete proof of something, then yes, I'd confront him. But I wouldn't tip my hand before. I took the 47 keys, put everything inside an empty cookie tin that I kept in the pantry, and hid the tin in the back of the kitchen cabinet, behind the bags of beans and rice. Then, carefully, I sewed the pocket of the brown jacket. I did a careful job, with thread the same color, tiny stitches. When I finished, it was impossible to tell that the pocket had torn. I washed the jacket, let it dry on the clothesline, ironed it with a hot iron, and hung it back in the bedroom closet as if nothing had happened. When Joseph got home at 6 p.m., everything was normal. He had dinner, listened to the radio, went to sleep. He didn't even notice I had barely touched my food. He didn't notice I spent the whole night awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about those damn keys. In the following days, I started observing my husband in a way I had never observed before. Every gesture of his, every word, every time he left the house. The following Wednesday, when he said he was going to the union meeting, I paid attention to everything. I noticed he took a shower before leaving, something he never did to go to a meeting. I noticed he put brilliantine in his hair, something he only did for special occasions. I noticed he wore his newest shirt, the one I had made for him to wear to weddings. When he left, 7 p.m. sharp as always, I waited about 5 minutes and went to the front window. I hid behind the curtain, spying. I saw him turning the corner, but instead of following the main street that led to downtown where the Union Hall was, he turned onto the back alley, the alley that didn't lead anywhere, just to the abandoned part of town. I went back to the kitchen, took the cookie tin from its hiding place, and stood there looking at the keys. 47 secrets, 47 mysteries, 47 lies, perhaps. I needed to find out what it was. I needed to know what my husband was hiding from me. But how? How would a woman alone in a small town, where everyone watches everyone, investigate her own husband without anyone noticing? That's when I had an idea. The abandoned house on the corner. That old house that no one had entered for years, whose owner had died, and the heirs never showed up to claim it. City Hall had sealed the doors and windows, but everyone knew teenagers sometimes climbed the fence to play inside. The house was at the end of our street, right at the corner where Joseph had turned that night. Was it crazy to think this? But what if one of those keys opened that house? What if my husband had a key to that place? He worked at City Hall. He was the custodian. Maybe he had access to keys of public and abandoned buildings in town. I decided I was going to find out. Thursday morning, after Joseph left for work, I took the tin with the keys, put it inside a shopping bag to disguise it, and left the house. I pretended I was going shopping at Mr. Peterson's general store, but I went around and headed to the abandoned house. My heart was beating so hard it felt like it was going to come out of my mouth. I looked around to make sure no one was watching. The street was empty, everyone working or inside their houses doing chores. I approached the old wooden gate, full of splinters, with that rusty padlock. I took out the first key from the bag, key number 1. My hand was shaking so much I almost dropped it. I put it in the padlock and tried to turn. It didn't go in. I tried key number 2. Didn't fit. Number 3. Number 4. I kept trying one by one, sweat running down my back despite the cold in my stomach. Number 8. Number 9. Number 10. And then, when I put key number 13 in the padlock, I felt it fit. I turned slowly, and the padlock opened. I stood there, holding that open padlock in my hand, unable to believe it. My husband had the key to the abandoned house. Why? What was he doing inside? I looked around once more. There was still no one on the street. I removed the padlock, pushed the gate. It creaked, complaining from the rusty hinges, and I entered the yard. The backyard was just tall weeds and debris, broken bottles, pieces of tile, rotten wood. I walked slowly to the front door of the house. It was a solid wood door, old, with that big iron lock. My intuition told me to try key number 1 there. I put it in the keyhole. My hand was shaking uncontrollably. I turned the key and the door opened. I pushed the door slowly. It moaned, a creepy sound that echoed through the empty house, or at least that's what I thought, that the house was empty. The smell that came from inside hit me in the face. It wasn't the smell of mold, of a house closed for years. It was the smell of people, of an inhabited place, smell of soap, of food, of cigarette smoke. My stomach turned. I took a step inside and waited for my eyes to get used to the darkness. The windows were all covered by wooden boards nailed from the outside, so almost no light came in, just thin threads of brightness that came through the cracks. The living room was empty, completely empty. Just dust and cobwebs, as you'd expect from an abandoned house. But there in the corner, on the hardwood floor, I saw marks. Drag marks, as if someone had dragged furniture recently, cleaning the dust in some parts, but not others. I crossed the living room, stepping lightly, trying not to make noise, although it didn't make sense. There was no one there, or was there? My heart raced with the thought. What if there was someone? What if Joseph was there at that exact moment and caught me snooping? But it wasn't possible. He was at work. I had seen him leave on his bicycle in the morning, as always. It was 10 a.m. He wouldn't be back until 6 p.m. I had time. I had to have courage. I went through the living room and arrived at a narrow hallway. 3 doors, one on each side and one at the end. I tried the first door on the right, locked. I tried some keys from my bag, but none opened it. I went to the door on the left, also locked. Different locks. None of my keys fit. That left the door at the end. This one was ajar. I pushed it lightly and almost fell backward with what I saw. The room was furnished. There was a double bed with clean sheets, white, well-stretched, a nightstand with a kerosene lamp on top, a wooden wardrobe against the wall, a chair, a rug on the floor, one of those rag rugs we made at home, and on the other wall, a vanity. A vanity with a mirror, with perfume bottles on top, with a hairbrush, with lipstick, women's things. A furnished room, a used room. My legs wobbled, and I had to hold on to the door frame. This couldn't be happening. My husband had a furnished room in the abandoned house, with a made bed, with women's things. I forced myself to enter the room. I needed to see up close. I needed to be sure of what I was seeing. I got close to the vanity. I picked up one of the perfume bottles. It was expensive perfume, the kind sold in the big city. It even had the seal, never been opened. I looked at the other little bottles. 3 different perfumes, all new, all still sealed. I opened the vanity drawer. Inside there was makeup, face powder, rouge, eyeliner, lipsticks in various colors, all brand new, all organized. And there was more. There were tissues, there were bobby pins, there was a toothbrush still in its package. Someone was preparing this place. Someone was leaving everything ready for some woman to use, or for several women. That's why the 3 different perfumes, that's why the various lipsticks. I went to the wardrobe. My hands were shaking so much I could barely open the door. When I opened it, I had to hold back the scream that rose in my throat. Dresses. The wardrobe was full of dresses, dresses of all types, all colors. There were party dresses made of shiny fabric. There were simple dresses made of cotton. There were Sunday dresses with lace, and shoes. On the floor of the wardrobe, pairs and pairs of women's shoes, all different sizes. I picked up one of the dresses. It was small size for a thin girl. I picked up another. This one was bigger for a fuller-figured woman. I picked up a third, medium. They were all different sizes and different styles, too. This wasn't clothing bought for a specific woman. It was clothing bought for several, for anyone who might need it. My head was spinning, trying to understand, trying to put the pieces together. Joseph had the key to that house. Joseph had set up that room. Joseph had filled that wardrobe with women's clothing. Joseph went out every Wednesday night and came here. Joseph traveled 3-4 times a month. And I had 47 keys. I sat on the bed because my legs couldn't support me anymore. The mattress was new. I felt it right away, and the sheets smelled like soap, had been washed recently. Someone was taking care of that room. Someone was keeping everything clean, everything organized, everything ready. That's when I saw the box under the bed. It was a shoe box, the kind from a store, with the lid separate. It was kind of hidden, pushed to the back. I bent down, pulled the box, took off the lid. Inside there were papers, documents. I picked up the first one. It was a receipt. Rent receipt for a house in Cincinnati, dated January 1965. The tenant's name was blank, there was only the signature. A signature I knew very well, Joseph's signature. I picked up another paper, another rent receipt, this time for a house in Louisville, dated February 65, same signature. I picked up another one. Columbus, March 65, another, Indianapolis, April. Another, Lexington, May. I kept taking papers from that box and they were all the same thing. Rent receipts for houses in different cities, all signed by Joseph, all in the name of different tenants. Sometimes it was John Smith, sometimes it was Peter Johnson, sometimes it was Anthony Williams. Fake names. They had to be fake names. I counted the receipts. There were exactly 47. 47 houses rented in 47 different cities, all signed by my husband. The keys, the 47 keys. Each one opened one of these houses. It had to be that. But why? Why was my husband renting 47 houses in different cities? With what money? He earned a pittance as a city hall custodian, barely enough to pay for our own house, our own sustenance. How was he managing to pay rent on 47 properties? I kept going through the box. At the bottom, under all the receipts, there were photographs. My blood ran cold. I picked up the first photo with my hand trembling. It was Joseph, younger, maybe about 10 years ago. He was arm in arm with a woman who wasn't me. She was young, must have been in her early 20s, pretty, smiling. They were in front of a house I didn't know, and they looked like a couple. They looked happy. I picked up the second photo, Joseph again, but with another woman, different from the first. This one was older, about 30 maybe, brunette, short hair. They were also arm in arm, also smiling, also in front of a house. Third photo, another woman. Blonde this time, thin, tall, same pose. Joseph arm in arm with her, the two in front of a house. Fourth photo, fifth, sixth. I kept picking up photographs and they were all the same thing. Joseph with different women of all ages, all types. Fat, thin, tall, short, blonde, brunette, redhead. Always the same pose, always in front of a house, always smiling as if they were married. I counted the photographs. 23 different women. I felt the bile rise in my throat. I ran to the window, tried to open it, but it was nailed shut. I vomited right there in the corner of the room. I couldn't hold it back. My whole body was shaking. Cold sweat ran down my back. My head was spinning trying to process all that. My husband had 23, what? Lovers? Wives? 23 different women in 23 different cities. And the other 24 houses, the other 24 keys that were missing from the photos. I wiped my mouth with my hand, tried to breathe deeply, tried to calm down. I needed to think, I needed to understand. I couldn't panic there alone in that abandoned house. I went back to the box. There was one more paper at the bottom, folded several times. I unfolded it carefully. It was a list written in Joseph's own handwriting. I recognized his writing right away. The list had city names in the first column. In the second column, it had women's names. In the third column, it had numbers, money amounts. Cincinnati, Maria, $50. Louisville, Anna, $45. Columbus, Rosa, $40. Indianapolis, Francisca, $55. The list continued. 47 lines, 47 cities, 47 women's names, 47 money amounts. Some amounts were small, $30 or $40. Others were larger, reaching $60, $70. At the end of the list, in very large letters, it was written, total monthly, $2,185. $2,185 per month. My husband earned $150 per month working at City Hall. $150. And somehow, he was receiving $2,180 from these women every month. He wasn't spending money renting these houses. He was receiving money from these women, 47 women who paid him every month. But they paid for what? What was he offering in return? What was he doing to earn all this money? That's when it clicked. That's when I understood. The photos arm in arm, the houses rented in his name, the dresses in the wardrobe, the perfumes on the vanity. Joseph had 47 wives. They weren't lovers, they weren't sporadic affairs. They were wives, women who thought they were married to him, women who lived in those houses he rented, women who paid him monthly, thinking they were helping their husband with expenses, women who waited for him when he went on business trips every month. And me, I was just one more, the one who lived in the city where he actually worked, the one he used as a base, as a cover. I was the official wife on paper, but in practice, I was just like the other 46, just another woman being deceived. The difference is I didn't pay because I didn't have anywhere to get money from. The little I earned sewing barely covered our sustenance. So he kept me here in his hometown to keep up appearances so no one would suspect. After all, how could a married man that everyone saw every day going to work be deceiving 46 more women? 23 years. 23 years living with a stranger, with a liar, I don't even know what to call what he was. I looked at my wristwatch. It was 11:30. I had stayed inside too long. I needed to leave before someone saw me, before Joseph noticed something. With my hands still shaking, I put all the papers back in the box the way they were. I put the photos in the same order. I pushed the box back under the bed to the same place it was. I closed the wardrobe. I cleaned my vomit from the corner of the room with my own handkerchief. I couldn't leave a trace. I left the room, crossed the hallway, crossed the living room. Before leaving, I stopped, looked around, memorized everything. I was going to need to come back here. I was going to need to get better proof. I was going to need to be absolutely sure before doing anything. I locked the front door with key number 1, put the padlock back on the gate, and locked it with key number 13. I put the keys in the bag and left there as fast as I could. When I got home, I locked the door, closed all the windows, and sat on the kitchen floor. I cried. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. I cried for everything, for the 23 years of lies, for the life I thought I had that never existed, for the other 46 women who were being deceived the same way I was. I cried until I had no more tears. Then I got up, washed my face, tidied the house. When Joseph arrived at 6 p.m., everything was normal. We had dinner. He commented that the pot roast was good. He listened to the radio, went to sleep, and I stayed awake all night, looking at him lying there next to me, snoring, calm, as if nothing was wrong. How did he do it? How did he sleep every night, knowing all the lies he told, knowing all the lives he was destroying? In the following days, I started observing more. I started paying attention to things that went unnoticed before. On Wednesday, when he left for the supposed union meeting, I waited a few minutes and followed him. I hid by Mrs. Newman's gate, our neighbor, and saw him turning the corner. I saw him entering the abandoned house. I stayed there, hidden, waiting. An hour later, I saw the door open again. But it wasn't just Joseph who came out. There was a woman with him, a young lady, must have been about 25 years old. She was wearing one of the dresses I had seen in the wardrobe, a blue dress with white flowers. They talked at the door for a few minutes. He held her hand. She smiled at him. Then she left one way down the street, and he came back home the other way. When he arrived, half an hour later, I was in the living room sewing. He said good night, as always. Said the meeting had been productive. Said he was tired and was going to sleep early. Lies. All lies. The following week, he announced he was going to travel again. Cincinnati, he said. City Hall business. Would be back Tuesday. This time, I observed everything. I saw he took a fuller suitcase than normal. I saw he put a bottle of perfume wrapped in newspaper at the bottom of the suitcase, one of the perfumes I had seen on the vanity in the abandoned house. I saw he was nervous, anxious, different from when he was really going to handle work things. He left Saturday morning. Said he was going to catch the bus downtown, and from there would catch another bus to Cincinnati. I waited for him to disappear from sight. I took the keys, took a bag with my things, and went to the abandoned house again. This time, I wasn't afraid. This time, I knew exactly what I was going to find. I locked everything behind me and went straight to the room. I opened the vanity drawer. One of the perfumes was missing. The one that had disappeared was exactly the one I had seen Joseph putting in the suitcase. This confirmed everything. He took things from there, from the stocks he kept in that house, and took them as gifts to the other women, to his other wives. I opened the wardrobe. The blue dress with white flowers was missing. The girl I had seen the previous week must have taken it home, or maybe Joseph had given it to one of the other women in one of the other cities. I sat on the bed and tried to think. I tried to put together the whole scheme in my head. Joseph was going to Cincinnati now. He'd spend the weekend with this Maria, who was on the list, the one who paid $50 a month. Monday, maybe he'd go to another city, to another woman. Tuesday, he'd come back home to me, pretending he had been working the whole time. And during the week, when he wasn't traveling, he'd receive women here in this house, women from other cities who came to visit, thinking this was the secret place where they could meet. That's why the furnished room, that's why the clothes, that's why everything. He had built an empire of lies. 47 women spread across Kentucky and surrounding states. 47 women who thought they were married to him or engaged or dating. 47 women paying a monthly allowance, thinking they were helping their partner. And he, in the middle of everything, collecting the money, visiting them one by one, keeping them all deceived. And I had been the first. I had to have been. We got married in 42. The oldest rent receipts I saw were from 58. So he started this scheme about 16 years after marrying me, or maybe before, and those were just the most recent receipts. How many years had he been doing this? How many women had already been through this scheme before? How many had found out and left, being replaced by others? I got up from the bed. I couldn't stay there thinking about this. I was going to go crazy. I needed to act. I needed to do something. But what? Go to the police and say what? That my husband had 47 girlfriends? It wasn't a crime to have lovers. It was a crime to have 2 legally married wives, but I doubted he had actually married all of them. He probably just lied, said they were married but never made it official. And even if I went to the police, who would believe me? A hysterical woman, jealous, who invaded an abandoned house and went snooping through things. They'd laugh in my face. They'd say I was imagining things. They'd tell me to go home and be a good wife. No, I needed a better plan. I needed better proof. I needed to find out who these women were, where they lived, how to contact them. I needed to tell the truth to all of them. I spent the next 3 days while Joseph was traveling, locked in that abandoned house. I'd take food hidden in the bag, enter early in the morning when the street was still empty, and only leave in the late afternoon. No one could know what I was doing. I searched every corner of that place, opened every drawer, every box, every envelope I found. And the more I discovered, the worse it got. On the second day, I managed to break open one of the locked doors in the hallway. I used a bobby pin, the kind we use to pin up our hair. I had seen my brother do this when we were kids, to open the kitchen cabinet where my mother hid candy. It took me almost an hour, but I managed. When the door opened, I saw that room was like an office. There was an old desk, a chair, and wooden shelves on the walls. And on the shelves? My God! On the shelves there were folders, dozens of cardboard folders, the kind used in clerks' offices, all organized, all labeled. I picked up the first folder. On the label it said, Cincinnati, Maria Conception, 1958-1965. I opened it trembling. Inside there was everything. Letters she had sent him. Love letters. Letters talking about her life. Letters saying how anxious she was for him to visit again. There were receipts for the allowance she paid every month. $50 just like it was on the list. There was even a photo of her, a document-type photo with an address written on the back. Maple Street, number 340, Cincinnati. I picked up the second folder. Louisville, Ana Paula Santos, 1959-1965. Same thing. Letters, receipts, photo with address. River Avenue, number 127, Louisville. Third folder, fourth, fifth, all the same. He had a complete file on each woman. Full name, address, how much they paid per month, copies of letters they sent, even his notes about each one's personality. Likes flowers, prefers French perfume, is jealous, be careful. There were 47 folders, 47 lives organized on shelves, as if they were store inventory. I sat on the floor of that room and spent hours looking at those folders. 47 women, all thinking they had something special, all paying monthly, thinking they were helping their partner who had financial difficulties but was hard-working, honest, trustworthy, all being robbed, deceived, used. I took paper and pencil I found in the desk drawer. I started copying the addresses. One by one, carefully not to get any letter wrong, any number. It took me all day. When I finished, I had a complete list. 47 names, 47 addresses spread across Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Tennessee. I kept the list folded at the bottom of my sock, inside my shoe. If Joseph found out, if he searched the house, he'd never look there. I put everything back in the folders, exactly as it was. I locked the office door again. I cleaned my footprints from the dusty floor. Joseph came back on Tuesday, as he had promised. He arrived in the late afternoon, tired, saying the trip had been productive. He brought a little package wrapped in gift paper for me. It was a cheap costume jewelry necklace, probably left over from some gift he had bought for one of the others. I pretended to be happy. I thanked him. I put on the necklace. I served the dinner I had prepared. We talked about trivial things, the weather, the neighbors, the tomato plants in the backyard. He didn't suspect anything. That night, lying next to him, I started putting together my plan. I couldn't just show up at the police station with that story. First, because they wouldn't believe me. A woman's word against a man's word was worth nothing in 1965. Second, because technically he wasn't committing a crime. He hadn't legally married any of those women. He just lied, deceived, took money. But that wasn't a crime in the eyes of the law. What I needed to do was simpler and more complicated at the same time. I needed to tell the truth to each of those women. I needed them to know they weren't unique, that they weren't special, that they were being deceived. And then together, we could decide what to do. But how? How would a woman from the countryside who had never left town, who could barely read properly, contact 47 women spread across multiple states? The answer was letters. I'd have to write letters, one for each woman, telling everything, offering proof, asking them to unite with me. The problem was, I wrote poorly. I had only studied up to 3rd grade, like most girls of my time. I knew the basics, write my name, read a recipe, do grocery store math. But to write a letter that made sense, that didn't seem like the ravings of a madwoman, that would convince those women to believe me, I was going to need help. In the following days, while Joseph was working, I started preparing everything. First, I needed paper and envelopes. I couldn't buy at the stationery store in town. Mr. Arnold, the store owner, was a gossip. If I bought 47 envelopes at once, the next day the whole town would know. So I started saving all the paper I found at home. Bread wrapping paper, clean pages from old notebooks, even gift wrapping paper. I gathered it slowly, hidden. As for the envelopes, I waited for Joseph to travel again and went to the neighboring town, 20 miles away. I took the 6 a.m. bus, bought 50 envelopes at the stationery there, and came back on the noon bus. No one from my town saw me. Now came the hard part, writing. I spent a whole week thinking about what to say, how to start. Dear ma'am, you don't know me, but I'm married to your boyfriend. It sounded ridiculous. It sounded like a letter from a jealous madwoman. It was Mrs. Richardson, the retired school teacher who lived 3 houses down, who saved me. She had always been kind to me, lent me books sometimes. One day, I worked up the courage and knocked on her door. I said I needed help writing an important letter, but I couldn't tell her the reason. She looked me in the eyes for a long time, as if she were reading my soul, and then nodded. For 2 weeks, every afternoon when Joseph was at work, I'd go to Mrs. Richardson's house, take my list of addresses hidden, take the papers and envelopes. We'd sit at her kitchen table, and I'd tell the story. Everything, from the keys to the folders in the secret office. She didn't judge me, didn't say I was imagining things, didn't call me crazy. She just listened, shook her head sadly and said, "Let's write these letters." The letter we put together was direct, clear, but delicate. It said, "Dear Madam, my name is Margaret Harrison. I know you don't know me, but I need to tell you something important about Mr. Joseph Harrison, whom you know and trust. I recently discovered that he maintains relationships with 46 other women besides me, his legal wife of 23 years. I know this is hard to believe, but I have proof. He rents houses under false names in various cities. He visits each woman once a month, saying he has work. He receives money from all of you saying he needs help. He keeps files with letters, photos, and information about each one. I know you live at woman's address and that you contribute, amount, per month. I know because I saw his records. If you want to confirm the truth, go to his house here in my town at address, or compare the handwriting of this letter with letters he sent you. They're from the same man. I'm not writing out of jealousy. I'm writing because we all deserve to know the truth. If you want to talk, you can write back to me at the address on the envelope. I apologize for bringing this news. I know how much it hurts. Sincerely, Margaret Harrison. Mrs. Richardson copied this letter 47 times, one for each woman, changing the specific details of each one, address and amount they paid. Her handwriting was beautiful, careful, like a teacher's. It looked like a serious letter, official, didn't look like something from a hysterical woman. We put each letter in the envelope, wrote the addresses. Mrs. Richardson even put postage stamps on all of them. She insisted on paying for the stamps, said it was her contribution to ending that man's shamelessness. On November 1st, 1965, a Monday, I took the 47 letters to the post office in the neighboring town again. I couldn't send them from here. Carl, the local post office clerk, would tell Joseph I had sent 47 letters to different addresses, and he'd get suspicious. I handed everything to the clerk there, paid the fee, and left with wobbly legs. It was done. The letters would arrive in the coming weeks. Now it was just a matter of waiting and praying that at least some of those women would believe me. The days that followed were the longest of my life. I'd wake up, do the household chores, cook, clean, sew, all on autopilot. My head was far away, imagining the letters arriving, being opened, being read, imagining each woman's reaction. Would they believe? Would they think it was a lie, a prank by envious people? Would they confront Joseph? Joseph continued his routine, work, trips, Wednesday night meetings. He acted normal, like he always had. Sometimes I'd look at him and think, how can a person lie so much every day for so many years without showing anything, without a slip-up, without hesitation, without a weight on their conscience? On November 15th, 2 weeks after sending the letters, I got home in the afternoon after going to the market and found an envelope in the mailbox. My heart almost stopped. It was a reply letter. The first one. The sender was from Columbus. I checked on my list. It was Rosa, the one who paid $40 a month. I locked the house door, went to the bedroom, closed the window, opened the letter with my hand shaking so much I almost tore the paper. The letter was short, written in trembling handwriting. Mrs. Margaret, I received your letter. At first I thought it was a lie, that it was malicious, but then I remembered strange things. He never took me to meet his family, never introduced me to friends, always had an excuse. He said his mother was sick, that his siblings lived far away, that it was better to wait for the right moment. I went to the county clerk's office here. I asked to see his marriage certificate. They said it doesn't exist. He always said we were married, but I never had the paper in my hand. He said he had lost it, that he was going to get a duplicate, but he never did. I went to his house here, the house he rented for our family. I talked to the neighbor. She said he only shows up once a month, stays one day and leaves, that she's seen him arrive with different women at other times. I believe you. I believe because now the pieces fit, all the lies make sense. What do we do now? Rosa. I sat on the bed and cried. I cried with relief. At least one had believed. I cried with anger. Another life destroyed by him. I cried with sadness for that woman who, like me, had wasted years believing in a lie. In the following days, more letters arrived. 1 from Louisville, 2 from Cincinnati. Yes, there were 2 different women in the same city. He was so shameless he had 2 wives in the same place. 1 from Indianapolis, 1 from Lexington. All saying they believed, all saying they had checked, investigated, and discovered it was true. All asking, what do we do now? Of the 47 letters I sent, I received responses from 21 women, almost half. The others either didn't believe, or were afraid to respond, or simply ignored it, thinking it was crazy. But 21 was already enough. 21 women willing to unite against him. I wrote back to all of them. This time, Mrs. Richardson helped me write a longer letter, explaining my plan. We would schedule a meeting all together in a neutral place. We would bring proof. I would bring the folders from the secret office. They would bring letters and photos they had saved. We'd put everything together and go together to the police station in the state capital, where no one knew Joseph, where we'd have a better chance of being taken seriously. I scheduled the meeting for December 10th, 1965, a Saturday, in the main square of Louisville, near the bus station, noon sharp. Public place, easy to find, where everyone could get to. I sent the letter with the date and location to all 21. I waited for confirmations. 19 confirmed attendance. 2 said they didn't have the courage to show up, but supported the initiative and would give their statements in writing. 1 month left, 1 month until the meeting day. 1 month to keep everything secret from Joseph. 1 month to gather all the courage I had to face this. During that period, Joseph started acting strange. I don't know if it was his intuition, if it was one of the women who confronted him and he got suspicious, or if it was just coincidence. But he started observing me differently, started asking questions. "Are you okay? Is something happening? You seem different." I lied. I said everything was fine, that it was just tiredness, that it was a busy time with sewing for the year-end party dresses for clients. He seemed to believe, but I saw in his eyes a distrust that wasn't there before. In the first week of December, he announced he was going to travel again. This time to Columbus, he said. He'd be gone all week, would only be back Friday the 9th. Perfect. He'd be far away when I went to Louisville on Saturday. He wouldn't suspect anything. But on Thursday the 8th, the day before he was supposed to return, I received a telegram. It was from Rosa, from Columbus. Only 3 words. He knows. Careful. My blood ran cold. How did he know? Who had told? One of the women who didn't believe the letter and showed it to him. Someone who saw us exchanging correspondence. It didn't matter how. What mattered is that he knew. And if he knew, I was in danger. Joseph arrived Friday night, earlier than expected. He came into the house and locked the door behind him, something he never did. He looked at me in a way he had never looked, a cold way, dangerous, and said, "We need to talk." I stood frozen in the middle of the living room, holding the dish towel I was using to dry the dinner dishes. My whole body went rigid. Joseph had never said, "We need to talk," that way. He had never looked at me that way. He threw his suitcase on the floor hard, took off his jacket, hung it on the chair back slowly, without taking his eyes off me. He pulled the chair, sat, crossed his arms, waited. I didn't know what to do. Deny. Pretend I didn't know anything? But if he already knew, pretending would make everything worse. Confess? What if he got violent? We were alone at home. It was nighttime. No one would hear if I screamed. I put the dish towel on the table, wiped my hands on my skirt, tried to keep my voice steady. Talk about what? He gave a smile with no joy at all. You know about what? The silence weighed in the room. The wall clock ticked too loud. Outside, a dog barked in the distance. I decided I wasn't going to deny. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing me lie, humiliate myself, try to make up excuses. If he knew, then let him know everything. I looked him in the eyes and said, "I know about the 47. He didn't expect me to be so direct. I saw the shock pass across his face, even if just for a second. Then came the anger. He slammed his hand on the table hard, making the silverware jump. You had no right to go through my things. You had no right to snoop, to invade that house, to spread lies. Lies! My voice came out louder than I intended. Lies! You have the nerve to talk about lies to me? You who spent 23 years deceiving me, who has 46 other women spread across several states, who takes money from all of us. He got up from the chair so fast I took a step back. My heart raced, but he didn't come at me. He stood there, breathing heavily, hands clenched in fists. You don't understand, he said, his voice low, dangerous. You don't understand anything. I did what I needed to do. I built this, planned everything. Years of work. Work? I laughed, but it was a bitter laugh without humor. Work is what I do every day in this house. Work is what all these women do to earn the money they send you. What you do is theft, is lying, is pure evil. He ground his teeth. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I saw the folders, I saw the letters, I saw the photos, I saw the receipts. $1,285 per month, Joseph. While I here struggle with the $150 you say you earn. He took a step in my direction. I wanted to back away again, but I forced myself to stay put. I wasn't going to let him intimidate me. Not anymore. And what are you going to do now? He asked, his voice low. Are you going to tell the whole town? Are you going to the police? You think they'll believe you? Hysterical woman, jealous, making up stories about an unfaithful husband? I'm not going to tell the town, I said firmly. I already told the other 46. They're the ones who are going to face you. His face went white, completely white. What did you do? I sent a letter to each one with name, address, amount they pay. 20